What's up, everybody? It is Follow Up Friday. That's right, Follow Up Friday. So, this week we're going to continue our series on God Speaks. Last week we covered the three types of voices that we needed to be aware of. Voice number one was God's voice. We spoke a little bit about that last week, so we can maybe help identify when we are praying and when we are asking for God to speak to us, that we are able to identify his voice better. The second voice that we talked about was Satan's voice. Always lying, he's a manipulator. The third voice was our own voice. It's always going to be self-focused, me, myself, and I. And so this week, what I want to do is I'm going to take a very short period of time, and we can go into this a little deeper if we want to, especially if you guys have questions or want to talk about it more on a personal level. I would love to do so. However, so today what I want to talk about is Satan's voice. And so briefly what I want to do is just kind of go through some of the things that we can help ourselves to identify Satan's voice. Now, like we talked about last week, Satan's voice, he's always going to be lying. He's always going to be manipulating. He's always going to cause fear, anxiety, doubt, all these different things. And so when we are listening for the voice of God, or we're going throughout our day and we feel a nudge or we feel an urge and we feel like God is speaking, or we just, maybe we're sensing something, one of the things that we can identify is if that something is creating a unhealthy fear, because we know that there is a fear of the Lord that we need to be aware of and need to have in our life. Or there's that fear of like, I better not step out in the middle of traffic because I'm going to get hit if I do. Those are healthy fears. But what I'm talking about is that unhealthy, ungodly fear that gives us anxiety and makes us stress and worry and all that stuff. Because when worry comes, that's not something that we should entertain. I'm not saying that you're wrong or you're bad because you worry. But what I am saying is when you allow that worry to affect your life, that's not a cool thing, because God says, don't worry about anything, but pray about everything. So I say all that to say, when we are listening for God's voice, when we hear those things come into us that's creating fear, doubt, anxiety, those types of things, that is all about some enemy. All right, that Satan is written all over that. If you go to John chapter 10, verse 10, it says the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come to give you life and life eternally, or life abundantly. So if we look at that for a second, John 10:10, the first half of that verse where it says the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So these thoughts, these things that you're hearing, you're feeling, does it seek to kill? Is it killing relationships? Is it killing your peace? Is it destroying certain fruits of the Spirit in your life? Is it causing you anger and stress? All these things we have to consider. And what is it killing? What is it stealing? Or is it trying to destroy? We've got to look at all that, because that's what the enemy's MO is. He wants to destroy us. He wants to kill us. He wants to take away that godly nature that is being renewed in us, and those fruits of the Spirit, and he wants to squash those, kill those, destroy those, because then he knows that he's got us. So when we want to hear God's voice and we begin to hear things that are contrary to what God's word says, then that's a huge sign. That's a big red flag that is not God's voice, because his words are truth. Remember, we talked about that last week. His words are truth. His words are pure. His words bring life. It says in John 10:10, the second half, but I have come to give you life, and life to the full, or life abundantly. And so these thoughts and these feelings that we are having when we are sensing that they are contrary to God's word, then that's how we identify that it's from the enemy. Now, what we're going to do is next week we're going to get into our voice, the voice inside our head, that me, myself, and I type voice. Because sometimes the enemy's voice and our voice can seem very similar, but they're very different. And so I hope this encourages you. I hope this helps you. And I pray that you are able to have a wonderful weekend. We will see you at service this Sunday. And I'm excited to see what God is going to do in and through the service and in and through you. Love you guys. Have a great weekend.